the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
In interceptions in 2025, Jack Foster.
Yeah, I'm going to say the guy who's returning, one of the captains of this defense, and Jermod McCoy. He tied the lead last year, and I didn't do this research, but if I remember correctly, you got quite a few of them early on. It was kind of a storyline I remember, at least in the first half of the season, about Jermod kind of being a ball hawk, and I just think he's an elite cornerback. I think the injury will not be a storyline going into the season as much as it is now, of course, and McCoy can lead Tennessee in interceptions this fall.
McCoy is like the most obvious one, but like you said, I mean, we have to take them at like just kind of what they're reporting is that he'll be ready to go early on, and that even if he misses like the first week or they're careful with him against Syracuse, that it seems like it would be a surprise if he's not there for Georgia in week 3. Because, I mean, they're going to need him against Georgia. Like, he's going to be a big-time need against the Dogs. But I was thinking about this, and I'm like, Tennessee, what's kind of weird about Tennessee is, like, I mean, do you know this off the top of your head, who Jermod was tied with interceptions last year?
Well, I wouldn't have before this morning, but yes, Will Brooks.
Will Brooks. And it's 4. And I don't remember 4. Like, I remembered 3. And do you remember the 4th? Can you count them off the top of your head of Will Brooks' interceptions? I mean, he obviously had the game sealer against Alabama. He had the pick 6 against NC State. I want to say he had one against Kentucky, right?
Yep. And this is why you can't remember it, because it was such a horrible night for Tennessee.
Did he get one against Ohio State?
Yeah, it was.
I don't remember a Will Brooks interception against Ohio State at all.
Back of the end zone, into the first half.
Oh, was that Willie B? He brought that in.
I would assume so. I mean, that's the only pick I remember for Tennessee.
That's wild. But like when you think ball hawk, you weren't thinking Will Brooks before last year, and the man had one of my favorite pick 6s of all time against NC State. That was electric. And also super critical because NC State was driving. The game just like went away from NC State for that. Like the momentum completely shifted once that pick 6 happened. And it got ugly in a hurry. But you look at it, Tennessee they're not like a ball hawking unit. You know what I mean? Like they don't really have, and maybe it's a little bit different this year because maybe they get more aggressive. Instead of sending 4, they're sending a lot more, and quarterbacks are more likely to throw interceptions under duress, So if Tennessee's more aggressive blitzing, maybe you get some more picks because you put them in situations where they were not put in last year. I don't know. I think it's interesting that Jermod and Will Brooks were the same there. I would say I don't think it's going to be Jermod. And part of it is I don't know if I'm 100% believing Jermod's going to be ready to go and he's playing a bunch of snaps week 1. I understand that like that's part of it's so weird because Jermod or Willie Martinez doesn't really rotate at corner. Like last year, those two guys, Jermod and Ricky Gibson played 60 to 70 snaps a game. Like, and then Jalen McMurray got his like 20-ish, I think. And I look at around, I don't know if Ricky Gibson's that kind of guy. It wouldn't surprise me if Ricky Gibson increases his interception total if he gets targeted more, because he was getting targeted a lot last year with Jermod being as good as he was. So, I mean, more targets, more opportunities for Ricky to get some interceptions here. So I think Ricky is an interesting one. But I just can't shake the fact that it was safety for Tennessee. It doesn't seem like Andre Turrentine is that kind of guy. And then if it's Jacoby Thomas starting or Christian Charles, I don't really see that either. Maybe Edrees Farooq steps into that role for Will Brooks as a big-time player that you're not expecting in safety spot. I think Boo Carter is probably... I'm just giving every word of Boo Carter. Like, would it be that surprising if Boo Carter is someone off the edge and he's just like, he has 2 interceptions where he just jumps up and just picks it off from a quarterback who's like running around away from Boo Carter, and he does something like... Boo Carter is just going to make plays, and now that he is the full starter at star, and maybe because of where Jermod's at, he maybe plays a little bit on the outside some, and they have somebody else in at start. Like, I don't know. I just, it's hard to keep the ball away from Boo Carter, and I kind of wonder if Boo's going to be someone who has a couple big interceptions this year.
He could be. And, that's another reason I went with Jermod is because when you look at this Tennessee secondary, there's not hardly any, new blood that's going to play a ton. It's a lot of returners this season, which is much different than the case was last year. And the interception numbers obviously weren't high for anyone else. No other player had multiple outside of Brooks and McCoy. So McCoy was that type of player last year, and I would just anticipate he's going to be again. And like you said, a lot of the other guys, what they are. But Boo is the unknown, I would guess, more so than the others. So it could happen. I just don't see it happening from the star spot as much. But, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I was looking at Tank McCullough was usually up there in years past for Tennessee. So they've had safeties, get a handful of picks in a given season. So it's not impossible for one of those guys like a Turrentine or Thomas to do it. But I'm just going to bet on McCoy.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to buy, this is just early stock. John Slaughter had an interception last year, and he was running with the ones a little bit earlier this spring. If John Slaughter is a starter with Andre Turrentine, and people are expecting it to be Farooq or Jacoby, and Slaughter wins that job, Slaughter's probably the pick here. He's athletic, he's rangy, he's long. John Slaughter might be my buy low pick. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say John Slaughter is at least tied or leads at Tennessee in interceptions if he's a starter. I'm going to go Slaughter.
Okay. Yeah. Big asterisks on the starter, but yeah.
Yeah. I like it. The other Tennessee football future bet, Jack Foster. Which year 2 player, and I'm talking true year 2, not like a Stone Lawless situation where he's being grouped in with the freshmen. It's and that with the way Nico was called, freshman, that drove me nuts last year. Nico was not a freshman. Why do we redshirt freshman? It's very different. He had a full year in the system before starting it. It drove me nuts. I don't know if it drives you nuts when I hear it on broadcast and people talk about it. It's he's a freshman. It's no, he's second year player. Just you got
nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.